Funding for this program was provided in part by the District of Logan Lake, BC.
People who arrive in the town of Logan Lake for the first time are usually captivated by its pastoral beauty. A small community of about 2,400 people, it's located about a half-hour's drive south of Kamloops, nestled beside the lake that gives it its name. The current town site was established in 1970 to house a workforce for the Highland Valley Copper Mine. As a result, the town has a clean, uncluttered look that comes from a short history and a fresh start. With each season, an increasing number of visitors take advantage of all the town has to offer. Hiking, hunting, fishing, cross-country skiing, snowmobiling. But with the summer months also comes anxiety. Like many towns set in the deep woods of BC, Logan Lake is vulnerable. The heat, the dry conditions, the unprecedented buildup of fuel in the forest all provide the perfect recipe for wildfire. No one is more aware of the town's vulnerability than Logan Lake's current mayor, Ella Brown. She remembers an incident in 2001 that caused her to take action.
We had a small grass fire. At that time, I took a trip down to have a look where the fire was and what the impact was. And looking at the number of homes that were threatened by the fire, were we putting people at risk because we weren't ready? And that's what I really realized. And if it was simply a grass fire, what's it going to do if it gets into the trees or into the heavily forested areas, which we all enjoy so much? So I felt like, I needed to identify what the risks were at that time and try and raise that as an issue to council and see if we can come up with a plan.
Council brought a team of advisors together and did come up with a plan. Its goal was a simple one, to reduce the high accumulation of fuel from around the town and the green belts within it. But who was going to do the work to remove this fuel? Ella Brown had another idea.
I had heard about a teacher at the high school offering a forestry program which was new to the community, and I thought, well, perhaps this could work hand in hand.
Well, I'd been teaching the course for about a year, and our mayor approached us and she asked if there was any possibility that the students could be used for going out and clearing at the interface areas. There were about 5 or 6 items in the curriculum guide that perfectly matched this going out and clearing out the bush. The students love it. The students absolutely love it. Getting them back into the classroom is like pulling teeth.
The use of these young crews, which included the town's junior firefighters, was seen as a success after the first season. This encouraged council to move forward with other aspects of their plan.
We had one demonstration area that we wanted to tour the community through and work with the residents in that area. We were trying to build a team again and have the new students on board and re-educate the new ones going through the classroom program. And that was about the stage that we were at when the fires of '03 broke out.
In the summer of 2003, the forest itself seemed to turn on the residents of BC's interior. For the people of Barrier, McClure, Chase, Kamloops, and Kelowna, these were no ordinary fires. Once they'd taken hold, they didn't just burn, they exploded through the dry timber. By the time it was over, 2,500 wildfires had devoured 265,000 hectares of BC's forest and 334 homes. 45,000 people had been evacuated, and 3 water bomber pilots had lost their lives. On August 1st, the Strawberry Hill Fire broke out above Kamloops, only 60 kilometers away from Logan Lake. The residents of the little town began to realize that they were still vulnerable.
We were not ready for the fires of '03. And as we kept watching the fires until midnight, the fires on television and all of the news broadcasts, everyone was sitting on pins and needles because it wasn't a matter of if we get a fire, it was a matter of when we get a fire.
Well, for starters, our forests were a death trap. They were talking 4,000 stems per hectare, when the average should be between 150 and 400. We had a forester come in during the fires of '03 and tell us that we were probably rated as one of the most hazardous areas in the province. If we had a fire come through here, it would be 10 times worse than what Kelowna was.
Ruth Phipps is in charge of emergency social services for Logan Lake. As evacuees from many of the fires were taken in at the Kamloops shelters, Ruth and her crew of volunteers went there to help.
It was unbelievable. I walked into the sports center. There was people everywhere. Tables everywhere, people crying. Other people were almost hysterical. They didn't know if they'd lost everything. They didn't know where their pets were. They didn't know if all the family had got out. Later in the evening, towards evening, busloads of people from senior homes were coming in. They were in their nightgowns and their pajamas. It was just unbelievable. It was the hundreds and hundreds of people that we looked after.
Others were patrolling our community and doing fire watch and lightning watches. We watched the motorcycles as they would pull into town, asking them to please stay off of the grasslands because their exhaust systems were igniting fires.
It was pretty scary. What made me aware at the beginning was we own property at East Barrier Lake, and my daughter and I had gone out one weekend, and we were out there for less than a day, and we were evacuated because they were worried about that we couldn't get out.
Frightened, very, very frightened. We thought the whole town would be burning down.
Well, it was pretty scary because we're covered by bush like you wouldn't believe. It's so thick out there, if that goes up, the town's gonna go up too.
The fires of '03 galvanized the community. Most people were now convinced that one day they'd see smoke, then flame, come over the horizon. For Ella Brown, one thing was very clear. Protecting the town was obviously a high priority. They were on the right track, but they had so much more to do.
After the fires of '03, we sat back down at the table and we readdressed the issue of the safety plan that we were currently working off of and realized that it wasn't all there.
To develop a better model of the wildfire safety plan, Mayor Brown and her council felt it was critical to gain the support of the Minister of Forests. At a meeting of the BC Union of Municipalities in the fall of 2003, they met with the minister.
It was an impressive meeting on our part. I think we all walked in there, so all of council was together. We walked in carrying maps in hand and our very first fire safety plan. Minister DeYoung gathered around and his aides were right around, and we were focused on what Logan Lake looks like. A very small community surrounded by forest at extreme fire risk, and we shared to him our story of what we had been doing for the last few years, and that we wanted some assistance from him.
Well, I'll tell you what impressed me the most about what they presented that day. First of all, the fact that they had developed it within the community, had consulted with people, the degree of support that was obviously there, and the simplicity. Let us get out there and do some things to fireproof our community, and in the meantime, or in the process, do some good things, put some people to work locally. I thought it was a hell of an approach, and one that clearly has worked.
Despite this kind of encouragement, Logan Lake Council knew that their wildfire safety plan had to increase in scope. The basic plan simply didn't offer enough protection. Shane Berg, the district forest manager for the Kamloops region, was strongly supportive and found a way to move the project forward. The Forest Service granted the town the right to harvest and market the timber in sections of the local forest.
What we did within the Forest Service was to give them 2 large sales that afforded them the opportunity to harvest. And in doing so, the next step was to find the right people to do the harvesting.
We needed to pull in some professional consultants, and we tendered it out, and J.S. Thrower were the recipients who hired and contracted out to Tom Lacey, a private contractor, and they created our current Logan Lake Fire Safety Plan.
Tom Lacey is an independent forestry consultant. His company, Millennium Forest Management, is a small-scale salvage operation and has been a big part of the development of Logan Lake's wildfire plan.
Firefighting is simple. We deal with the fire triangle being heat, oxygen, and fuel. Remove any one of the sides of the fire triangle and the fire will go out. How would you protect Logan Lake is a very simple question. Can be answered by dealing with forest fuels. If you don't provide a protective buffer, an area around the community to start from, then we're really not going to be successful at protecting it.
There are 3 types of fuels in a forest that can feed a fire. Ground fuels are leaves, branches, any growth near or on the ground. Next come ladder fuels. These are low-hanging branches and small trees and bushes that can carry a fire, like a ladder, up into the tree itself. Then come crown fuels. Once a fire gets into the crown, it can spread rapidly from tree to tree. The Logan Lake Wildfire Safety Plan came up with 22 recommendations with a 3-year timeline. The first and most important was the creation of a perimeter fuel break surrounding the community. Called the interface zone, it would have a radius of 5 kilometers. Reducing the amount of fuel in this zone is simply the best defense against wildfire. It gives firefighters and their equipment the space to battle an oncoming blaze. Another recommendation encouraged the residents of Logan Lake to make their homes less vulnerable to wildfire. But not all homeowners are getting the message. The crowns of these trees are all touching, creating a route for flame directly to a tree that is actually touching the house. Fire travels upwards and will follow this fuel up the slope to the home. In wildfire country, flammable cedar shakes are a poor choice of roofing materials. On this asphalt roof, debris from the surrounding trees has collected and needs only a wind-borne spark to start a fire. Storing combustible material like this close to the home is never a good idea, but this resident has taken it a step further. A pile of dry pine needles is stacked directly against the house. One sure way to protect homes and yards from wildfire is to follow the provincial government's Fire Smart guidelines. These guidelines define 3 zones around a home. Zone 1 extends from the house to a radius of 10 meters. Zone 2 is from the limit of Zone 1 to 20 or 30 meters out, and Zone 3 is anything beyond Zone 2. The owners of this property have done an excellent job of clearing Zone 1. There are no trees or bushes touching the house. The area is very open, the grass cut and watered. Firewood is stacked well away from the house. In Zone 2, trees have been trimmed of ladder fuels. They've been spaced properly to keep fire from spreading through the crowns, and ground fuels have been cleaned up. Zone 3 is the untouched forest and is usually the responsibility of the Crown or district, although homeowners are encouraged to clear into this area too, if they feel it's necessary.
A natural forest is something that very few people see. A natural forest is open. It burns every 7 to 15 years. Less trees, more grass, park-like. When we started fighting fire and eliminating fire from the environment, we allowed that change to happen, and now the forest has filled in. We have dense stands, heavy fuel loadings, and a real challenge from a fire perspective to deal with wildfire in the interface.
The idea of the forest being kept clear and open by naturally occurring fires is not a new one. First Nations people have used deliberately set fires for thousands of years to keep their forests healthy.
It's a natural part of our ecosystem here. It replenishes some of the berry plants and other vegetation that the moose and the deer use for feed, and allows that to regenerate and be healthy, and it keeps those populations going, and it keeps our berry patches going.
This stand, we're in a stocking plot here right now, started at 3,500 stems per hectare. It was very dense, almost impenetrable. We had the crew come through, space out the stand, knock off the ladder fuel, clean it up, pile the debris for disposal by burning in this fall, And there's also firewood on the site because we're utilizing some of the material to meet the community's needs. This stand that I'm in right now would represent about 550 stems per hectare. Not the ideal for fire safety, but with all the other work that we've done, certainly would be quite safe for crews to work in. We could manage a fire in this. And it's really important that the fuel break that we put in meld into the community. So as you look behind us, we're now looking from the fuel break to the community, a nice seamless run into the community that shows that it's part of the community, that it supports the community. So now that we've looked at an area that's managed, I'd like to take you into a spot and show you this forest the way it was before we made the changes to it. Well, we've entered the forest, the unmanaged area, and as you can see, it's certainly dense. Many stems in here, 3,000 to 4,000. Haven't really tallied them, but extreme amounts of ladder fuel, surface fuel, and the crowns are touching. This is an environment meant to carry wildfire and to exhibit extreme fire behavior. So this definitely would be a challenge for firefighters to work in. Huge difference.
An important part of a successful defense against wildfire also includes the creation of fire guards within the interface zone.
As you can see, we've just recently built a fire guard down to mineral soil, reducing all the fuel, the surface fuel, above the soil itself. That creates a point for us to do some fire suppression activities. Those activities would be looking at burning off the fuel between the guard itself and the advancing fire front. Why is that important? Well, it's important for us because it allows us to have a bigger control line to stop that progressing fire. If we do nothing, we have no control line and the fire could advance across this point right up over there into those existing houses.
The advantages of reducing fuel in the interface zone seemed obvious to everyone, but it was a huge undertaking for a small town council.
The interface zone is just so big. We very quickly realized that hand piling would be fine and very appropriate in some of the smaller blocks and particularly closer to some of the residences. And yet in the other areas, that just wasn't going to do. We've got about 8,000 hectares to clear to create a fire-safe ring around the community. We needed to come up with another method to reduce the fuel load in the community. And who was going to do it? How are we going to do it?
Industrial logging, including clear cutting, is based on economic factors. It's all about efficiency. You harvest as much as you can, as fast as you can. But it's very different when you're doing selective logging in the interface zone surrounding a community.
An organization or a company that comes in to do harvesting in an interface area is not supported in any other way. They have to do the preparation, the layout. The money that they receive comes from the product that they cut, skid, run through the mill. Until that point, there is no financial benefit to that company. The more extra efforts that are put in there adds to the cost. In a lot of cases, does not take very long before it's a break-even or a losing situation. Sooner or later, you're going to have to bring in the large equipment. You're going to have to go in with the appropriate operators to make the change. You can't do it all by hand. The expense is horrendous. The time frame would extend out. Instead of 3 years, could be 30 years. The equipment that we're using for the interface zone, most people expect smaller is better. We are using large equipment that can go through the stand and manage the trees. They can effectively pick up several trees, manage those trees, pile them, and place them. To do that, the skid trail that they cut for access to remove the wood is about 4.1 to 4.3 meters. So you have a clear zone, which we place across the wind, which becomes part of the fuel management. So when you're going through, you're trying to plan to get the best out and to also plan it in a way that visually it's aesthetically pleasing.
Once the people of Logan Lake understood that heavy machinery could be used successfully for selective logging, they were very supportive. As the clearing continued, crews would often find hand-built bike trails complete with ramps, jumps, and raised platforms. They were careful to leave these in place. Corporal Dave Prentice of the local RCMP was concerned about the number of late-night parties that were occurring in the forests around the town, usually involving bonfires.
This poses a lot of problems. Not only is it difficult if the fire department had to respond to get to these remote locations, but also if the kids themselves are in trouble. How do we get emergency services in there to help them? In conjunction with the town, a fire pit was constructed for them in a location right in town. They don't have to drive to it. It's not a fire hazard, and there's plenty of wood available in the nearby bush that they can drag out and use in this fire pit. To the kids' credit, they use this pit. We can give them some leeway because we know where they are, we know the town is safe, and we know that they're safe.
The earlier success of the student crews led to jobs for a team of 8 young people who continue to clear the interface during the summer months.
I feel pretty good because when I'm done work for the day, I can look back and I can see what we've done. I've heard a lot of stuff around the community. People are happy that we're here, and it just feels nice that I'm doing something for the town.
As the fire chief, the wildfire safety plan does nothing but make my life a whole lot simpler. It keeps our firefighters safer. It gives us the opportunity to access the fire. It gives us a better chance of defending homes by taking away a lot of the intensity of the fire, by removing a lot of the fuel. This is an exercise in order to provide water to forestry for their sprinkler system. We arrived at the hydrant, connected 2.5-inch lines from the hydrant to our fire truck, and then ran a 300-foot, 2.5-inch line from the fire truck into the forest to their fire break, where they could connect their forestry lines to provide water for their sprinkler system. Let me know when you're ready for water.
We're ready.
You've got water coming.
Copy that. Kick those kinks out.
The cooperation we're getting from all the outside agencies, the forestry, the government agencies, it's amazing.
Working with the fire department from Logan Lake, they brought us water to this point, and the BC Forest Service crews will be taking it further into the forest and meeting the fire with it.
They ran almost 2,000 feet of 1.5-inch hose, putting a sprinkler every 100 feet to provide interface protection between the houses and the forest. When we do a demonstration like that, we learn how to work together with other agencies. We learn what their capabilities are, what our capabilities are. We know who we're working with, who's responsible for what, who's going to take charge, who's going to do what job. So that can sometimes be an issue. But by meeting people and working with them, that works a lot better when you do get out onto the fire ground.
As well as providing much better access for firefighters, the skid trails formed by machine logging brings another advantage to the community.
The network of trail systems that have been developed through this style of logging now further develops our snowmobile trails and our cross-country skiing and our hiking. And we can put together a really good tourism package to draw people here to come in and use our trail systems of Logan Lake and create some revenue and have that revenue flow in to maintain our fire safety plan for future years.
All 22 recommendations of the Logan Lake Wildfire Safety Plan are well underway. All of them should be implemented within the next 2 years. Meanwhile, how do the residents of Logan Lake feel about what's been done to date?
Well, I think it's excellent. We're lucky to have a mayor and council that's very proactive and, went after this. And, I think those people who've seen what they're doing realize that it'll help us out in case there is a fire.
Oh, the Logan Lake Wildfire Safety Plan is a beautiful plan. Every small town should have one of them. I don't know of anybody that's safer than Logan Lake now. Before it wasn't safe at all.
I think the Logan Lake plan is a watermark plan. It's a tremendous example of how a community can cooperate with the various agencies to do things on the land that are good not only for the community but for everyone involved. It's a wonderful example of a team working together with government, with the municipality, with the residents, with the operators, and I think if other communities follow this example, they'll be equally successful.
We're not completely ready yet, but we've come a long ways, and I think that when we see smoke coming over any one of the hills or lightning strikes, that we feel very strong and confident that we're going to fight that fire. You know, we gave ourselves 3 years. It's going to take longer than 3 years to get us through it, but in the overall, I think that it's been fantastic. I feel very confident.